Some of you have emailed me after watching the prior videos about land management costs and the myths. And it's almost as if some are questioning me that the states really sell land. And you can go out to any of the state land board websites right now, and there's procedures and process by which you could nominate lands to be sold. There's auctions going on all the time. And if they get this huge inventory of hundreds of millions of acres of federal lands, given the budget crunch some of these states are in as oil and gas prices and coal prices have dropped, where their royalty revenues are dropping, do you think those states would not look at those lands as a source of cash flow by selling them? That's what they've done in the past. And I would bet any money that's what they would do in the future. So let's go into this state by state. I'm just going to go from Arizona to Wyoming. So the state of Arizona started out with 10.5 million acres of land that it received as its land grant when it became a state. And now Arizona has 9.3 million left. They've sold 1.2 million acres. A little over 11% of their land they have sold. Going on to Colorado. Colorado started out with 4.8 million acres of state land. They now have 3 million acres of state land. Do the math. Colorado has sold 1.8 million acres of the state land. They have already sold over 37% of those lands. Idaho was granted 3.7 million acres of land when Idaho became a state. Right now, they have 2.4 million of that left. So they sold 1.3 million, or 35%. In my home state of Montana, we started out with 5.7 million acres of land when we became a state. Right now, Montana has 5.2 million acres. We've sold 500,000 acres in Montana. Plus we have all other kinds of crazy restrictions, and we got to pay to recreate on state land. Here's the granddaddy of them all, Nevada. Nevada was granted over 3 million acres at statehood. In Nevada, being a really dry state, they said, well, we would rather be able to go handpick our land, so we'll give you back the 3 million if we can go and handpick 2.1 million of lands for our state land transfer. And Congress said, okay. So Nevada, through that exchange, ended up with 2.1 million acres of the most productive land in Nevada. It was handpicked by the state. They've sold almost 2 million of the 2.1 million as a net decrease in state lands in Nevada. That's 93% of the land in Nevada that they got at statehood has been sold. And when we get into the Nevada segment, the video that's upcoming on Nevada, and you hear the story about how that land got sold in Nevada, you're just gonna shake your head. So the state that received the most land in all of the federal land grants at statehood is the state of New Mexico. New Mexico received 13.5 million acres of land when it became a state. Right now, they've got 9 million of it left. They've sold 1/3 of it. Oregon started with 3.5 million acres of state land. Right now, they've got 1.6 million acres of that left. They've sold 1.9 million of it. That's almost 50, what would it be, 54, 55% of your state land has been sold. Right now, they have a 93,000 acre state forest up on the auction block because the state cannot afford it. It's losing money. And their state statute and constitution says we got to sell it. Well, they've already sold 1.9 million. It looks like if they sell this 93,000 acres, they're going to be close to having sold 2 million. Utah. Okay, Utah right now is the home. It's like the incubator of all this craziness. And Utah started out with 6 million acres of state land granted to the state of Utah when it became a state. Right now, Utah has 3.4 million acres left. Do the math. They sold 2.6 million acres of their state lands since they became a state. 40-some percent, 42, 43%. Do you think that they're not going to sell all these federal lands if they get them? Yeah, they are. That's their plan. That's their strategy. In Wyoming, at statehood, the federal government said, we're going to give you 4.2 million acres. Right now, Wyoming has 3.5 million acres left. They've sold 700,000 of those acres. 700,000? What's that as a percent? 16, 17%, something like that? That's a pretty big chunk of land they've sold that you and I no longer have access to. And they don't just go sell the lowest use, the least valuable lands. They sell the most valued lands, the highest demand lands. And a lot of our lands that we love to hunt and fish and hike and camp and do the things we love to do, this is what they've done historically. This is what they're doing today. And that is what they will do in the future, especially if they get a huge influx of BLM and Forest Service lands under this notion of state transfer. Now, we're going to go through state by state, starting with Colorado, because it's the most obvious example of how you, as someone who recreates on public land, hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, would lose access to tens of millions of acres just in Colorado under this idea of state transfer.